This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you for joining the City of Kingston's Common Council at our Public Safety General Government meeting. Today is Wednesday, April 22nd. My name is Andrea Schott, the Council President and organizer for our virtual meetings. Before we begin our meeting, we would like to go over a few meeting guidelines to help us navigate the system as efficiently and respectfully as possible. We ask that members of the public and press remain muted and off camera for the length of the meeting. As organizer, I reserve the right to mute anyone who unmutes themselves. Council members and city staff will control their own mute button. Good practice would be to mute yourself if you are not speaking to avoid background noise and feedback. If a council member or staff wishes to speak, they will raise their hands. The chairperson will call on them before they speak by stating their name clearly for our audio listeners. All of our meetings are recorded. Both video and written transcriptions will be made available to the public on the city's website tomorrow. Although we will not have public speaking tonight, you can submit written comments to the City of Kingston Clerk, Elisa Tinty, at emtinty@kingston-ny.gov, or by dropping them off at the drop box located outside the side door of City Hall. We also encourage you to reach out to committee chairs or your ward's representative at any time. If you have any audio issues, send a text message to the following number, 845-594-6120. I'll repeat this number again, but be aware that phone calls will not be answered during the meeting. The number to text is 845-594-6120. As the organizer for today's meeting, I reserve the right to lock and pause the meeting to eject anyone who has behaved inappropriately. Lastly, at tonight's meeting, we have in attendance Chair Alderman Tony Davis, committee members, Alderman Jeffrey Ventura Morel, Alderman Rennie Scott Childress, Alderman Patrick O'Reilly, Alderman Michelle Hirsch. City staff, non-voting council members, we have Alderman Doug Coop. City staff, we have Engineer John Schultes. Thank you for your patience during these difficult times, and on behalf of the Common Council, I wish you and your family good health. And I now turn the floor over to Chair Tony Davis.
Hello, this is Tony Davis, Alderman Tony Davis. And so we have our first agenda since we don't have a public meeting, any public speaking at this time. And so we're going to go into new business. And my first item is adding stop sign at Westbrook and Sharon Lane. Did everybody have a chance to read this over?
There were head nods, yes.
Yeah. So any question on this? Any discussion? Alrighty, so we got the resolution that reads that John Schultes created. Thank you, John. Get this up. The resolution will read, or the committee report reads, for the intersection of Westbrook Place and Sharon Lane, add stop signs MUT CDR1-1 for traffic on Westbrook Place, amend vehicle and traffic and code 390 and section 92, schedule 9 accordingly. Any question on it? All in favor?
Aye.
To take a you gotta get a motion first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Can we have a motion, please? Jeffrey Morel first, Rennie second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Patrick, you're an aye?
Aye.
All right.
Yes, Tony.
Anybody opposed? Go all in favor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, thank you. First one. Second item on the agenda is removing handicap sign at 18 Aura Place. On the question. So the committee report and read remove handicap signs in front of 18 Aura Place as per attached request. Do I have a motion? Rennie, second. Jeffrey? All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor. Anybody opposed? 5-0. Okay. Next item. Adding handicap signs at 52 Ravine Street. So the committee report will read, install handicap signs at 52 Ravine Street as per attached request. Any questions? Motion? Rennie, second. Jeffrey? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? 5-0. All right. Next item on the agenda is removal of no turns on red at Greenkill Avenue. I read this. Any questions for city engineer while we have him?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, what's the rationale for taking the sign out there?
That was
It
Rennie
seems to me-
Scott Childress, by the way. Don't forget to
Oh,
say
sorry,
your
Rennie
name.
Scott Childress. I'm just wondering what the rationale is, since the you've got a kind of difficult sight line when you're coming up Wilbur, and the concern, I guess, the reason for putting in the no turn on red there is because anybody taking that turn too wide would be out in oncoming traffic coming up Wilbur.
John, you want to address that? City engineer?
Right. So I think the issue, well, Rennie, do you understand that this is for vehicles traveling on Greenkill northeast that would be making the right onto Wilbur, not traffic leaving Wilbur turning onto Greenkill?
Right, and I've been through there a lot, and I've always wondered why there was a no turn on red. And as I was trying to figure that out, if you're turning right from Greenkill onto Wilbur, it's not a very wide street. And I guess the concern was that if somebody who is making that right-hand turn, if there's oncoming traffic heading up the hill on Wilbur toward Greenkill, that, you know, there would be a potential for a collision. I'm just wondering. I don't have a dog in the fight, really. it's more I'm curious.
Yeah, if I understand. So, you know, with right turn on red, the state law is you have to come to a complete stop, then you can make your right turn movement. So you even by removing this, you're not allowed to just glide through without you know, to do a rolling stop is not allowed. You know, so by coming to a complete stop, you know, you're not going to make that wide movement, I think, that you're concerned about if you're following the law.
Any other questions? Jeffrey Morrell?
Yes, Jeffrey Morrell here. So if I'm understanding correctly, there will still be a stop sign there. So you have to stop before you turn, right?
Right. It's a traffic signal. It's a three-color signal. So it's what we're removing is the prohibition of right on red, which by state law is permitted except where explicitly prohibited.
Any other questions? Michelle Hurst?
I'm just curious, from turning from Wilbur onto Greenkill, the left, why then the stop line is so far back from Greenkill? Like there's a large gap. I don't know.
It's probably because that's a truck route. It's a designated truck route, and from Henry onto Greenkill and onto Wilbur is a designated truck route through the city.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Tony Davis here, and I believe in you know, but Alderwoman Hurst was speaking, there is I believe there is a line back on Wilbur Avenue, so where they have to stop before they get closer to Greenkill Avenue, if I'm correct, from my many years of playing Little League over there. So if somebody is making that right onto Wilbur, and the traffic will be far enough back that it shouldn't, at a red light, that it shouldn't avoid any collisions there. Any other questions?
No.
So let me read what the committee report will read. And for the intersection of Greenkill and Wilbur Avenue, delete the prohibition of right turn on red for vehicles traveling northeast on Greenkill Avenue and turning right onto Wilbur Avenue. Do I have a motion? Jeffrey, second. Rennie, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Good. Thank you. And that is it for, I believe, for new business. Old business, we have a few things on the agenda from old business. One being parking in bike lanes. And I had a conversation with Alderwoman Schott and Alderman Jeffrey Morrell today, as well as reaching out to corporate counsel. And who else did I reach out? Reached out to Kirsten Wilson. And so I had some information on this. And basically what they're stating is that corporate counsel suggests that we amend the city code and to allow and to prohibit parking in bike lanes, designated bike lanes. And this will be a citywide. At this time, we propose that it be citywide. We do know that Broadway sweeps, that we might have to go back and amend this at some time, but I don't think we will. And because I'm talking to Kirsten Wilson, and the way Broadway is going to set up, and I didn't have a map at the time, is that it's going to be traffic, parking, bike lane, sidewalk. So if you can get that picture, traffic, parking, bike lane, sidewalk. And so it would, I had a question earlier about would that stop people from being able to park at businesses along Broadway, but I got that answer, and I got that question answered. All the women, Chair Adam Schott.
Actually, my hand is Sir Patrick O'Reilly.
All right, okay.
Sir Patrick O'Reilly would like to speak.
Patrick O'Reilly.
Hi, it's Patrick O'Reilly. Tony, are you saying that this is going to be a citywide regulation?
Correct. The way it will read, that it would be citywide, and for any designated bike lanes citywide, it would prohibit anybody parking in a bike lane. Okay,
I don't have a problem with that per se, except the fact that we don't have the signage up for that. So like on Hurley Avenue, there's big gaps between the little pictures of the bicycles on the ground there. So people might pull over and not even realize that it is a bike lane. So what I'm saying is we're going to have to spend some money here to post signs all along these bike lanes every so many feet so that people are aware that it's a bike lane and that they can have parking there. This is a great thing to do. This thing's going to take lots of signs. I would imagine, I don't know, I'm not the engineer who would do this, but I would imagine it would take signage to make people aware before they get any kind of ticket from a police officer. Thank you.
All right. And Jeffrey Morrell and Michelle. Jeffrey?
Yes. So the parking enforcement officer reached out to me pretty much as soon as the bike lanes on Hurley Avenue were built with this concern, because he had been getting complaints that a lot of people were parking and blocking the bike lanes. And his main concern was that it was a safety issue. If we have children on a bike on the bike lane and there's a car blocking the way, they would have to then swerve into the traffic to keep going. I don't. Patrick's concern is valid. I didn't think about that, but yes, how will we? Will we? I do have that question. If we would have to put signs to designate that there's no parking on bike lanes. Thank you.
Alderwoman Hirsch.
I'm just curious, like how many parking spots this would be then taking away, or how many cars this would affect, and are there certain times of day that this is happening, or is it, during the day and evenings the cars are parking there?
On Hurley Avenue, there's already no parking on the side of the street where the bike lanes are. And Tony and I spoke today. He had the concern about Broadway, and I had the same concern about taking parking spots away. And I don't know, Kristen just said to, right, Tony? Kristen just said that
it wouldn't take any lanes away because of the configuration that is going to be on that section of Broadway where it's going to be bike lanes, where the bike lane again is a designated parking lane and a designated bike lane so in the road. So it would basically, the parking is going to, the designated parking lane is going to protect the bicyclists as they drive up and down Broadway, because we're going to have the road, people traveling on the road, then you have the parking lane, then you have the bike lane, then you have the sidewalk. So, Rennie, Alderman Scott Childress?
Yes, Rennie Scott Childress. I think this is a really important thing to do, and the reason is precisely because of safety. This is exactly what we mean when we talk about complete streets. We have to have streets that work for all the different people who use them, and so there's no real reason to have bike lanes if you've got people parking in them, which then forces bikers to then have to swerve out into traffic. And a lot of people aren't equipped with, who are on bicycles, they're not equipped with rear view mirrors. And so this could be a very dangerous thing as they're turning around, seeing if there's traffic coming. And so, especially if there's already no parking along there, that would mitigate the need to have signs specifically for that zone, because if it's already no parking, we don't have to add other no parking signs there. And I think usually too, in these kind of situations, KPD would issue some warning tickets first before simply going in and starting to ka-ching with fines. So I mean, that would be something to check on for sure. But we can always too, if there is a place where this is an issue, then bring it up. But I think it's important now to protect the safety of people on bicycles as we are trying to get more and more folks to use alternative modes of transportation, and to really develop complete streets for all the users of our streets in our community.
Chair.
Andrea Shaw here.
Madam President, I should say. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just wanted to second Rennie's idea with the warnings. Maybe reach out and talk to Jeffrey, because this was brought up to you. Maybe reach out and talk to park enforcement too, as well as KPD, just to make sure that as this, people should know the law before they're fined on it. So that might also calm some nerves from putting up a sign every place. The other thing is just a proactive educational push, making sure people know that this is now a law, and for the reasons that Rennie was talking about, seeing if we could do something for that. And I believe my numbers might not be exact, but with the sign cost is about, when I was talking about this with another issue, it's about $150, $200 per sign, labors and parts. but it's not something that I think we would want to put every place, but maybe if there are certain spots where there's gaps, like Patrick mentioned, that, you know, if you all decide to move forward with this, you see spots that aren't being followed, you know, and maybe that's where we put those signs. So this could be a living, working experiments. But Patrick, sorry, I'm getting a text message. Patrick also wants to speak again too. And that's all I have.
I just have one question before we get to Patrick. Is John still here?
He is.
No,
I'll
John
try and-
Soultice?
Yeah.
John, maybe you can answer that question that came up. Will we have to put a lot of signs up in for that, for, you know, the Hurley Avenue?
In my opinion, no. While you guys were talking, I was doing a little research on this. So there's only one street in Kingston that has bicycle lanes, and that's Hurley Avenue. And then when we finish Broadway, that will be the second one. And I was looking a little bit to see how other cities, especially New York City, have handled this. It does seem as if we will have to pass a law specifically saying there's no parking in bike lanes in the city of Kingston. But I don't think you will have to erect any signs for that.
We wouldn't have to put any signs up.
You wouldn't have to.
All right.
And I would recommend.
Yeah, I was going to say, would you recommend?
You know, we're trying not to clutter up every city street with a lot of signs.
Correct.
The bike lanes will be sufficiently marked with distinctive paint striping and the bicycle symbols that people will know.
All right, so do you think that we need to put signs up at the beginning of the Hurley Avenue, at the end, or no?
We do have, where the bike lane ends, there are signs on Hurley Avenue that say bike lane ends, and the symbols, you know, stop appearing on the pavement.
Okay. All right.
Hurley's a little easier because it's only, the bike lane there, I think, is only 4 feet wide. On Broadway, it's going to be an 8-foot wide bike lane, which just happens to be the same width as a parking space. So, you know, but I think I agree that the police department is going to, you know, issue warnings, and then if it becomes a repeat offender, they'll issue tickets.
Okay. Thank you. Patrick?
No, I'm pretty happy with the discussion, how it went. It sounds good that we won't have a lot of signs. I appreciate that. Boy, we got enough of those. And I think after time that people will realize that these are bike lanes and not parking them anymore. So I'm pretty happy, Tony. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? So let me read you the committee report I wrote up. I might have to make changes to it. Amend the City Code, Chapter 390, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 7, Parking, Standing, and Stopping, Section 56, to add subsection G to include the verbiage in designated bike lanes. Jeffrey Morale.
No, that was a motion.
This motion.
Oh, do I have a motion? Jeffrey's first, Rennie second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. The next item on the agenda then would be an old business that we brought up a couple months ago, which is the intersection of Washington Avenue and Market Street. Marius, I'm sorry, Marius Street. So we talked about that a couple months ago, and then, you know, we had a situation here with the coronavirus in the schools and being, you know, canceled and not canceled, but on distance learning. And so I know I wanted to make sure we kept this on here so that, you know, when we do get back to normal, that we'll be able to go ahead and have some more in-depth conversations about this and take some more action. I'm not sure if we need to take action on it right now since schools are closed and there's no children going to and walking to George Washington School. That's just my opinion. That I just wanted to have it. Anybody have anything to add to that? Jeffrey, then Michelle.
Yeah, I had a question for John. Last time we discussed this, he stated that they would place no parking signs near the crosswalk. Has that been done, or is that put on hold?
No, so Tony, and I apologize I didn't get back to you sooner. I did do some investigating here, and I also spoke with the superintendent of DPW about this location. I do have some suggestions as far as some changes of the signage there. Also looking at the conflict between the crosswalk location and the pizza restaurant, which has a difficult parking situation. So I do have some suggestions there, and I think let me review that with you maybe outside of this meeting. None of the things that I'm talking about actually require legislation. It would be changes in warning signs, and one of the things I'm looking at, there are 2 crosswalks crossing Washington Avenue, the one right in front of the pizza restaurant, and then on the opposite side. I would actually suggest deleting one of those so that the remaining one is safer, and that the pizza restaurant gets to retain some on-street parking in a safe location there. But currently the parking is too close to that one crosswalk, that's for sure.
Tony, you're muted.
Alderman Tony Davis here. So, and John, you're saying it wouldn't take we wouldn't have to make up a report. This is something that you can just do internally? Yeah, right. The changes that I envision there, and I actually have a draft plan I can share with you, involve warning signs of different, some of the high intensity fluorescent yellow, okay, ones that are more modern, with a consistent message for the school crossing. Okay. But those are not legislated. They're warning type signs, not regulatory signs. Okay. And Alderwoman Hirsch.
Hi, Alderwoman Hirsch here. I just wanted to say that I believe that the school is still being used for food pickup while school is closed. And so if we can act on the signs sooner than later and waiting for school to be open, we don't know how long really the people, the community will need to be fed out of the George Washington location. And the school district has also advertised the parking lot for George Washington to be a learning zone for Wi-Fi. So there is activity going on over there as a school. Thank you.
Yes, I apologize. Yes, I did. I misspoke there. Yes, they are using that as a hotspot for Wi-Fi in school pickups. Yes, thank you, Alderwoman. Alderman Morrell.
Yes, Jeffrey Morrell here. I also agree that it would be a good idea to get this done before the school restarts, so that by the time school starts, then this is already taken care of.
Okay. So, John, is that something that can be done soon?
Yeah. Like I said, I did have one conversation with the superintendent, and he was agreeable and felt that the changes that I was proposing could be accomplished by city staff.
Okay. Is that something, if you could get that out to us, to everybody on the committee, and at least the blueprint, what you had, so we could have a visual?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me share it with you and see if you have any comments. I can probably send that along tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. So we're going to take some action, and then we can see what that looks like, and we can always come back next month if there's anything else that we need to add regard to this, okay? And I believe that was it. There's only one other item on there, and I believe that is, it's communication that received earlier from a couple months back from Alderman and Shabbat in regard to 3rd Avenue. and I know, and the constituent there wanted to come to the committee to speak. And since we're doing virtual, she has sent the letter. I read the letter, the note from Steve Shabbat stating what she wants to and what her concerns are. But after speaking to the engineer department as well as DPW, the handicap is on the side of the street that is only allowed. There is no parking allowed next to her home, and as well as in front of her home is a city sidewalk, and so she would not be able to park there, and in violation. And so as of right now, the handicap signs have been put up across from her residence, and I know she's not really happy about that situation at the time. But other than that, I don't know really what else we could do in regard to that matter at 3rd Avenue. So any other questions on that? Comments? All right. Any other business? No other business? So we can adjourn.
Hold on.
No,
Sorry,
no.
I just got, Patrick wants to speak.
Oh, hey, Patrick.
Hi, Patrick O'Reilly. Thanks for letting me speak. I've done a little research about, and it's a safety issue for the employees here on the DPW, especially the garbage truck workers, the laborers, and the drivers. Now, the problem is this. The social distancing issue, of course, is almost impossible on a garbage truck. I've called Albany, spoke to the DPW guys up there. I spoke to Newburgh, head of DPW there. I spoke to Poughkeepsie, mayor in Poughkeepsie, the mayor. And, this is a tough issue. They have a little different. In Newburgh, the DPW guy says they ride on the back the whole time, and then they deliver the guys back to the shop. So they don't have, and there's about 8 feet across from the truck, 6 feet across on the truck. So the social distancing isn't happening there. But their city's a little different than our city, of course, I mean, imagine going down Wilbur Avenue at 10 miles an hour on the truck would take you forever, right? So, but it, on the back of the truck. So that's one thing they're doing. Another person suggested that they get a chase car and they park the car in front of the truck, which isn't a bad idea. Park the car in front of the truck so that the people getting out of the car would be, or the truck, or the pickup truck or whatever, would be safe, and then they could not drive together. So I thought that was a pretty good idea to park some kind of follow. But of course, we have limited resources. How many pickup trucks do we have, right, to do that kind of thing in? And in general, everybody's giving out gloves, masks. I know this DPW is giving out masks. I don't know if they're giving out gloves, but most of the other municipalities I spoke about are giving out gloves and masks. And they're really trying not to put more than one person in a truck at any time. So I mean, every one of them I spoke to, that was their goal, okay? But some of them weren't able to do that, like the city of Kingston. Thinking that these people are a little close, 3 people in a truck. One suggestion was that they were dropped off at the DPW after they do their route, which I thought was a good suggestion. And then they go dump the load at the transfer station. Anything they can do. Another one was that they put one guy on the patch truck now instead of 2. One laborer. So, everything, it really comes down to, are we looking at everything we can do for our employees to keep them safe? That's all. Just want to let you know.
Randy Scott Childress.
Yeah, thank you for doing that, Pat. I'm sure that was a fair amount of work to call all those people and actually reach them. You and I talked about the possibility of providing them with hand sanitizer. From my understanding, gloves are not all that useful because you end up touching yourself thinking, oh, I've got gloves on, I'll be okay. So I'm just wondering, do you think that the city's maintenance workers and so forth would actually use hand sanitizer if we got it for them?
Alderman, Madam President.
I know DPW as well as KPD and KFD do have supplies of the N95 masks, gloves, and every truck has hand sanitizer in it.
Okay, all right.
I don't know.
Hey, Tony.
Alderman O'Reilly, go on.
Yeah, I know they said that, I don't know if it's happening at our DPW, but they're sanitizing the trucks after they come in too, with spray and wiping them down. They're spraying their trucks. They're trying to do every sensible thing that they can do. And, I hope we are too,
Our DPW is also sanitizing the trucks after every shift.
Okay. I mean, and Alderman O'Reilly, is that something you would want to do some more? I'm not sure if you've reached out to our DPW and spoken to our the supervisor of DPW or superintendent about, and some of these suggestions that you're seeing some of these other municipalities are using, like, the use of another vehicle and no more than one person in the truck. I'm not sure how that will work. And I know, from some research I've done, union contract or law, they can only drive so far on the back of the truck. And so, that would take away that being driven on the back of a truck. I think they can only go so long, such a distance before they have to be inside the vehicle. They cannot drive on the back of the truck like in the olden days when we used to see, sanitation workers riding on the back of the truck all the time. But
yeah, it's 1,000 feet, Tony.
1,000 feet. So.
And that has to be at 10 miles per hour or under.
So I'm not sure if, Patrick, if you've reached out to Superintendent Norman and to discuss some of these matters.
Yeah, Tony, I have. I spoke to the mayor and I spoke to Ed about it. They were saying they were doing everything they could, and I just, asked them to please, keep this in the forefront of their mind at all times, and if there's anything else they can think of that they can do for our employees, would they please do that? And of course they, said they would do that.
Okay.
So I have reached out, Tony. There was a couple other things that maybe I could mention. It was one person had talked about the incentive program where we used to have here in the city of Kingston, where the employees would go out. In Newburgh, they go out at 4 o'clock in the morning. They pick up the garbage at 4 o'clock in the morning, and the superintendent had a good thought about it. He says, well, they pick it up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and then it's not as dangerous. There's nobody on the streets. They're not getting run over by people. And there's less traffic, so it's less dangerous. And they said the employees work about 30 to 35 hours a week, but when they're done with their shift, they can go home. And they're not sitting around, trying to social distance at their yard. They're coming home, they get done with their job, and they can leave immediately after the pickup's done. We may be able to change to something similar to that. I don't know. I know the routes in Kingston are different, and they set them up a little different than probably in Newburgh. But, maybe we can let these, after their job is done, they can just go home instead of going back to the yard and mixing with other people. And, and the social distancing must be difficult. I know there's logistical issues with that, though.
Yeah, that is something I've discussed with some employees there and brought up too. And that, they're saying after they get done with the routes, I believe now they're starting, they trying to break it down. I think one shift starts at 7 a.m. and the other shift starts at 8 a.m. So they're trying to, half the workforce that's starting a little earlier. But again, that'd be something to look into, that shift, once they're done, to go home and not have to sit in the yard and, when they're done with their shift or when they're done with the route, sitting in the yard now, still not practicing the social distance because of the confinements. And I'm not sure if that's something that, if you've reached out to the mayor and to see, is that something, in regard to the union contract can be done, and et cetera, that I'd rather, see them as soon as they get done with their job, be able to leave, especially in that environment, and not have to sit around and wait to a certain time before they can leave.
Yeah, I think all people that are in that DPW position should be, that's probably something we should talk about happening, because there's no reason to sit around in the break room.
No. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, Tony, just one more thing. I'm sorry, Michelle. Just one more thing. I did talk to Ed in depth about it, and Steve in depth about it. I think there are some things we can do, though. I think if we think hard enough about this, I think there's some things we can do, just like that, maybe something like that, Tony. Anything would be a help. Now, as you said, they're doing the dual shift thing. I don't know if that's being adhered to as strictly as it should be, because I was talking to two laborers the other day, and they said, I'm on the 7 o'clock shift, I'm on the 8 o'clock shift, and they were in the same truck. So it's not, it's probably working to some extent, but there's obviously scheduling difficulties going on there.
Alderwoman Hirsch?
I just wanted to thank, this is Alderwoman Hirsch. I would like to thank Alderman O'Reilly for bringing this to our attention. I think we need to be doing all that we can as a council in the city to protect our essential workers that are going out there every day and risking their health to help keep our city clean and running. And I want to thank them for doing that work, showing up every day. But again, I think we should be doing all that we can to protect them.
Can I say one more thing, Tony?
Yes.
I was just thinking about the gloves that Randy said. I mean, these guys are actually touching garbage cans. I mean, they should have gloves on, you know?
Alderman Scott Childress?
Yeah, I only meant in terms of protecting yourself from the COVID disease. I'm sure wearing gloves is really important to do if you're dealing with all the refuse of the city. I did want to ask one thing. Patrick, in talking with folks at DPW, have you heard of any employees of DPW contracting COVID-19?
No. Tony, I haven't heard anything.
No, I haven't heard anything too. I mean, I would think that, if I guess if a city employee, no matter where, if it was contracted, I would hope that would be notified. Now, obviously not saying who the person is because, privacy, but being notified that, somebody in a certain business, whatever, or certain department and, has tested positive for that. But I haven't heard anything in regard to anybody in any department.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Madam President, Schott?
Do you want me to try and get Ed Norman into this call?
Yes, if it would be helpful. I was going to reach out to him or to the mayor tomorrow and leave me a message about this conversation, but if he's available, yes.
All right, let me just get the access code to him.
I mean, again, not knowing all the gist of the union contracts and all that in regard to, just knowing a little bit, not knowing a lot about, the contractual, when they have to work, how many hours they have to work for, and, et cetera, et cetera. And I'd like to be privy to that.
Yeah, but during this, Tony, we may be able to waive some of that stuff, like contractual time.
That is, that's above my pay scale in regard to union contracts and in violation of contractual obligations and stuff. So that's not something I want to just say we can do.
Just give me one more minute. I'm getting him in.
All right. But again, as you and Michelle said, whatever we can do to try to, and protect our city employees, especially our essential employees, is moving in the right direction.
Now, I also spoke to some of these municipalities, and they said they were doing half on, half off. So they cut their department in in half. 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. Other departments, there were other people were volunteering with inside
I
the
believe he's caller number 5.
He's caller number 5. Hello, caller number 5.
Hello, how are you?
So we have on right now Superintendent of DPW, Ed Norman. How you doing?
We're doing good. I hear you guys got some questions about possible actions at DPW with the coronavirus.
Correct. And Alderman O'Reilly said that he had spoken to you and the mayor and some other people in regard to whatever, and what could be done to protect the and sanitation workers. And he brought up some things that he has spoken to several other municipalities, Albany, Newburgh, Poughkeepsie, and what they're doing with their sanitation workers. I'm not sure if he spoke to you about that, but he had some things like people riding on the back of the trucks and use of another vehicle to follow along and practice of social distancing. I guess there's still 3 people in some rigs have three people in the rig, and gloves, mask, and hand sanitizer, and then no more than 1 in the truck. These are some of the things that Alderman O'Reilly had brought up. So
Okay, so I can address pretty much all of that. Everyone in the department has been giving PPE as required. So that's gloves, glasses, masks, hand sanitizer. All the vehicles have been issued with hand pump sanitizers. At the end of every shift, the employees are supposed to sanitize each individual truck that they're in. The men have been instructed daily to keep social distancing. If there's any more than 1 in any vehicle at any time, they're all supposed to wear masks, as they are if they can't social distance, even out in the street. Everything we have done to date has been for their safety. We did split up the shifts so that recycling and garbage are 2 different shifts. The garbage starts at 7. The recycling, the garbage starts at 6. The recycling is at 7. The place where there is some kind of cross-contamination, I would call it, not contamination, but the people from shifts are intermingling, would be at the streets department, sanitation or sewer in the streets down Wilbur Avenue. We have guys starting at 6 and at 7. Sometimes some of those individuals will wind up in the same trucks together, working side by side, but also they are required to wear all their PPE. The sanitation guys are required to wear gloves at all times, as well as masks. They have everything in there, everything available to them as required.
Okay. All right. So, Alderman Scott Childress.
Hi, Ed. Rennie Scott Childress. I was just wondering, have you heard of anybody in DPW contracting coronavirus?
We have not had anybody in DPW contracted coronavirus. Someone from Parks had an issue. They were away on vacation. They did their self-containing, then tested. They tested negative before they were allowed to return to work.
All right.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Ed, this is Alderman Tony Davis, and Patrick O'Reilly had also brought about an incentive program or shift in discussion with the shift when they're done with their job, and that they could just go go home and not have to, go back to the yard, as it's called, and wait around. I'm not sure, contractual, if that's a problem. Center.
Right,
I don't know what their shifts are.
Right. There was, at one time, they had what we called stint work, which is they would come in at, I believe, 6 a.m. They would come in, do their rounds, and whenever they got done, whether they were working 4 or 5 or 6 hours, would be able to be done for the day. That was taken away years ago based on injuries, people having accidents, garbage cans being left on the roads. It was just everybody trying to get it done as fast as possible, pulling from both sides of the street. It turned into a safety issue for the safety of the men and the public. So that's why that's no longer in effect. There is something in the contract that we could possibly put back into effect, but that would have to be put with the mayor's permission and the permission of the union itself to make that happen. But at this time, we're not looking at that.
Okay. So that was something that did happen back because of safety issues, et cetera, and it was removed several years ago.
Correct.
All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, Tony, this is Patrick O'Reilly. Ed, have you thought about putting an extra truck on to a garbage truck? Now, I don't know how many pickup trucks you got there, but could you do that and maybe have the pickup truck pull in front of the garbage truck so that the garbage truck protects them when they get out of the car, and then they could go do their job? Or maybe they could drive 200 feet up in front of the garbage truck, pull over, get out, and then walk back. Is that a possibility?
Well, the problem with that, Patrick, and members, is we don't really have the manpower for, I think we have 7 or 8 vehicles at any given time out on the road doing the recycling and sanitation. To put an extra vehicle out there to carry the second or third person is just, we don't have that kind of manpower, especially now. And if we were to have an issue with people falling sick, we would just not be able to man everything, and something would have to be set aside. We wouldn't be able to do recycling or some other aspect of what we're out here to do every day. But right now, if they abide by the terms that we have put in place, I don't think there's any issues myself. We did look at other arrangements for splitting shifts week at a time. That was not approved by the mayor. So, we're doing what we can do.
Is it manpower, Ed, or is it the trucks you don't have?
Well, it's both. We don't have enough separate vehicles and drivers for them. If we, in order to do all our services and keep everything going daily, I don't have the manpower or the vehicles to put a separate vehicle out with each individual trash truck.
Yeah, I'm just saying that couldn't one of the laborers drive the truck, or they don't have a license to drive the pickup trucks?
Some laborers actually do not have licenses.
So you'd be a little strapped there, but a laborer with a license on a truck could drive the pickup truck in front, and then it would just be the same 3 people, right?
Yes, you would still have at least 2 people in one vehicle. Because there's on the garbage trucks, there are 3 people on each. So then you would be, in essence, you would still have at least 2 people in one vehicle. It doesn't really make a big change in things. And if people do as they're expected to do, health-wise, take care of themselves and be respectful of their counterparts at work and their families at home to do the right thing, I think we'll get through this.
Right. Ed, one question. You said you have the shifts starting, one starts at 6 a.m., the garbage?
Yes, one starts at 6 a.m. and one starts at 7 a.m. So
now 6 a.m.
Go ahead.
What time do they 6 a.m.? What time do they get done?
At 2 o'clock.
So 6 a.m. gets done at 2 and 7 a.m. gets done at 2 as well?
No, they get done at 3.
All right, so 6 to 2 and 7 to
2 and 7 to 3.
All righty.
And we've done that to lessen the burden at the yard when they come back for their breaks. There's not as many people in there at any given time. It splits them up for their breaks, their 15-minute break in the morning, and their 30-minute lunch break, and then their 15-minute afternoon break.
Hey, Ed, I got one question for you. When they go to the transfer station to dump the garbage, do they all have to go, or could they be dropped off back at the DPW to wash their hands and clean up while the driver goes and dumps the load? How does that happen?
Well, that's something we were looking at. There also could become an issue with the union because the driver is a driver and the laborer is a laborer. Sometimes it gets a little convoluted with the union. So the driver backs the truck into the transfer station, and then the laborer gets out, opens up the hatch, sweeps out the back. So that's something that would have to be worked out with the union.
Right. Any other questions? All right, Ed, we appreciate you coming on, and if you just keep us abreast of, what if any changes occur there, and, so that we could be caught, kept up to date of what's going on, and with the essential workers at DPW, we'd be greatly appreciated.
Okay, and talking for the essential workers, I just want to be on a record saying I do appreciate everything they do. I know it's a hard time for them. They're being asked a lot. And I want the council to also remember, in the times that are coming, remember who the essential workers are, what they have done and are doing when we start looking at what may be coming down the road here.
Okay, greatly appreciate it.
All right?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Bye.
Thank you. Any other questions, any comments, any other discussions? So anything before I adjourn, Madam President? Can I adjourn this time, Madam President? So
Things are
we're going to
good,
adjourn this
Tony.
meeting at 7:31. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second, motion Jeffrey, second Michelle. All in favor?
Aye.
Patrick?
Patrick, you want to go home?
All right. Okay, to the next one. Thank you.
Thank you, John,
Stay
if you
safe.
can still hear us.
Stay safe and healthy.
Thank you.
Jeffrey, start
Bye.
shaving a little bit there.